Hello YouTube, I'm Armoury or Tom, and I'm back. As you know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, this really big, surprisingly big budget for a TV show, Marvel Cinematic Universe TV show, has been airing recently. Now, we're only a few episodes in, about halfway, I believe, and we've seen some interesting battles between a couple of superpowered beings, a few sort of forces of nature in a way, some organisations, that sort of thing. Now, my problem with the show, as I'm sure you all guessed I have one, my videos tend to be of that, is that we only have two characters with dimension to them. Really, this show should be called Agents of Phil Coulson, or better yet, Phil Coulson, because that's what it is. Or Adventures of Phil and Sky. Because, as you probably all have noticed, Fitz and Simmons are pointless. They are there to drive the plot. There's no dimension to them. They're there to make jokes, which sometimes, I'll admit, are pretty funny. But they don't have anything to them. There's nothing being derived from their character to explore some kind of theme or explore some kind of turmoil or struggle which we tend to associate with a good character. Melinda May, the pilot and weapons expert, has almost something to her, sort of going up in order. Although she is so two-dimensional, it's ridiculous. We see her at the start of the series, the very start, think, oh, I won't do that, you'll want me to go into battle. Later, okay, I'll come into your team, and I won't fight. Later, I'll fight. There's no real meaning as to why. She just does. And really, she should all the time. She's an agent. They can kick her out. There's no dimension to it. That's not character development. Character development happens when a character is like they are, and they go through something, and then they change. The emphasis is on them going through something, not on the change. The change is a consequence, not a cause, which it is in this case, which I don't like. However, the fight scenes with her are pretty cool, and she does her job. And again, that's another point, as I've mentioned with Fitz and Simmons. She's there to drive the plot forward. She has no inner purpose. Then we have Agent Grant Ward. This is the fighter guy, the big, muscular, macho guy who punches people really hard. He's, again, going up the scale, getting better. He has something to him. We can see that he does start to change in a slower, more indirect sense, where he is calculating, cold, and inhuman at the start of the series. He's a fighting machine, which, fair enough, you've been raised in a secret police kind of society, you're going to be like that. And then Sky being difficult changes him by being easy in a way. She changes how she acts, and he realises that being cold and calculating isn't the most efficient way. And I actually found that quite interesting. It's one of the better bits of the series, to be honest. But even then, he just drives the plot forward. Except in one of the later episodes, I really liked his episode where he was wearing the glasses. I did like that episode. He's starting to get better, but there's still something really 2D about him. And again, it's because they're not going through these events that change them. And if they have, they're not being explored. That's what I like, is the exploration of these events. Sky. Sky is, as again, the penultimate character. She is the second most developed character. She was working against S.H.I.E.L.D, for them, against them, for them, for them, against them, for them, against them. And we can't work out whose side she's on, which I find fairly interesting. But that's where it ends. We know that she's a master hacker, And that's it. And there's no sort of strands of her story left open. Like, if you've been watching Arrow, and I'm going to do a whole other video on this, the first season ended, and it tied itself up pretty well. They could have ended it there, obviously because they didn't know if they're going to get a second season, which they have, thankfully. But in the bits of it, when you, for like, they'd leave a story away for a bit as they move on to someone else, but they'd leave a strand of it, and then an episode later, they'd recap on that strand before exploring that. Now, we haven't really got any of these strands of story in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, which I find quite odd, and especially with Skye. Only question we have about her is who's on the other side in the rising tide. And that's it. We're not left any questions, really, about who she is. It's kind of left as it is. When you're watching it, that's not what you're thinking about, but that's what I want to think about, and I just don't get the answers for it. Lastly, I have Phil Coulson. He is the most developed because not only has he had these few episodes, he's also had a load of films, but specifically in these few, Avengers and this. You know, after he died, or he did sort of die, and came back, they sent him off to an island, I can't remember all the name of. I can't remember exactly where they sent him. Really should have thought this. They sent him off to somewhere. And that's a question that they left open from the very first episode, and that's what I like. I like that. I really, I'm clawing for information about it, and every time he mentions it, you get a little bit more about what might have happened to him there. And the way that he talks about other characters really adds to this, and he gives the complete insight and narration on all the other characters. But you'd think that would open up them. It doesn't. It opens up him. It opens up Phil Coulson about what he thinks of people. And, his willingness to forgive, his willingness to give chances, to train. He doesn't believe people need to be naturally skilled. He believes, you can train people, you can help people, you can change people. And that is another really good thing that has been a constant recurring theme, and that's amazing. And it even goes back to Iron Man. Because when you first see Iron Man, you don't like him. Because, you're meant to like Iron Man, Tony Stark. And he does accept Tony Stark as Tony Stark changes. This is a theme we've seen, although didn't really take much notice of originally. Which I quite like. But the main thing that's holding this show back, obviously, is the writing. Because all the actors they do their role pretty well. But there's something holding the writing back, and that's the fact that it's in the cinematic universe. You'll find with Batman's a really good example for this because he has so many villains, is that if you want to explore the possibility of Batman having some kind of mental illness or problems that obviously he can't tell anyone about, you use the Joker. The Joker can mirror any problems he has in his mind because of how similar they seem when they're together, yet so different. If you want to explore Batman's strength and how he tackles his problems, you pick, Bane, to see, how he fights and how he trains himself, how he treats physical fighting. If you want to see how smart he is, you have a Riddler. You have a villain to mirror every part of Batman there is. We don't have any villains for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because we're in the cinematic universe, they have to use Z-list characters. You can't use any big characters that, are like A-list and B-list characters because they're so good and because they're so interesting. They have to use B-list characters, and maybe, but they have to use, Z-list characters. They have to use really, really unknown characters. Just because they're the only ones left. Because if they use a B-list character, or an A-list character, I don't know, I can't really think. Say, they can't use Loki because he's in there. They can't use Ultron because he's in the next one. You can't use Titanium Man because he could appear in an Iron Man film. You can't use these big villains that are good, and they are so good, And this is proven by the fact that they are at the top. They have to use the quite boring, sometimes low characters. And that really holds back what they can do. So in a sense, I don't blame Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. being bad. Well, not being bad, it's not bad. It's just there are so many better things on at the moment. And that's the key thing from my quite civilised rant, to be honest. It's not a bad show. I'll still watch it every week. I'm not offended by it. It doesn't disrespect any characters that I know. It does start to open up the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I did quite like the fact that it's now showing us what normal people think of superheroes in the first episode. That was quite good. But there's just so many better things on. Especially with the really, really flourishing streaming networks now. You have access to so many good, really, really good things. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is just kind of left by the roadside. At least it should be. People have the options to watch Arrow, as I said, really good series. I haven't seen them, but I'm assured that like Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, Mad Men's apparently really good, and House of Cards, Orange is the New Black from Netflix, and there are so many really, really good shows on with so much story crammed into the same amount of time that I don't really know why Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is flourishing, apart from the fact that it's connected to the cinematic universe. It's the only thing people like. If this didn't have Phil Coulson in it, and they weren't called S.H.I.E.L.D., they were called something else, and it was just a spy show with some superheroes in, I don't think people would be that interested. Heroes succeeded without the names because it was a good show. This doesn't have that. If this was like Heroes and was just all new characters, I don't think it would succeed. And that's my problem. So that's my quite long, hopefully quite clear sort of reasoning as to why I'm a bit disappointed with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I will be back soon with some more of these, hopefully. I do have some things to talk about, definitely. So be here soon, and I will see you all later.